Hello and welcome to another World of Warships video. This one we are in the Independence, the Tier 5 American aircraft carrier, and it's going to be a quick one because I'm actually heading overseas in 5.5 hours. So I just want to get this one uploaded and then it should be up. Actually, I'm going to put it up in a couple of weeks, which will be just before I get back. And I kind of just want to show you this game. Actually it was just kind of, I felt like I've gone away for 3 weeks, I should have at least a third video up before I go, but anyway. It's just aircraft carrier gameplay, because my first video was actually pretty popular, and well, you guys probably would like to see the next carrier up in the game, and also see how I've kind of improved, or how I do carrier tactics now. Anyway, the Independence, it's very different from the Langley at Tier 4 in a number of ways. Kind of, as a ship, it's much better, simply because it's much faster and a bit more manoeuvrable. And it's also got a lot of anti-aircraft guns, which the Langley does not. I mean, the Independence can actually pretty effectively defend itself from enemy aircraft, which is something you'll see in this game quite a bit. The downside of the Independence, though, is that it gets dive bombers, which just aren't very good in the current iteration of the game. So if you move from the Langley, I prefer to fly with a fighter heavy loadout, but you'll note that I'm flying with 1 squadron of fighters and 2 of torpedo bombers. And that's because if you choose a fighter heavy loadout in the Independence, you get, well, 2 fighters and 1 dive bomber, and that dive bomber is actually pretty useless. So I prefer to be conventional and go bomber heavy. Even though I'm actually not particularly good at this, and I don't really pay that much attention to what my bombers do, I just, what you see me doing here. Order them to attack battleships, kind of set them up, and then usually I actually just ignore them a bit and just hope the battleship doesn't move too much. See my first squadrons coming in now, and I was hoping that essentially the battleship would turn to my number 3 squadron, which would put it broadside on to my number 4 squadron. But the battleship actually ignores both of them, and it's in a lot of trouble right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 torpedo hits, and that battleship just went from, well, full health to about 25% health. That's why you should dodge. Anyway, I've spotted some enemy torpedo bombers kind of heading up the map, and I order my fighters to intercept them. And then I see the enemy fighters are breaking off, so I decide I'd actually rather fight the enemy fighters above this cruiser, until I realise it's an Omaha and there's a Cleveland right there, and the Cleveland has got anti-aircraft guns. But the enemy fighters decide they don't want any of that, so I figure I'll go after the rearward bombers, and then I look away. I was actually, I was trying to click on a different enemy aircraft there that wasn't being escorted, but I accidentally clicked on my own ship icon. So zoomed all the way over the map, and while that was happening, my fighters were engaged by the enemy fighters, which means they're now stuck fighting them, and those 12 bombers are going to reach their target. And it's at this point that I realise that I'm essentially the target. They're ignoring our battleships and cruisers and heading straight up the middle of the map, so they're obviously coming at me. So I order my anti-aircraft guns to concentrate fire on the leading squadron of enemy bombers. And my fighters are doing alright here. They've lost 2 aircraft, but they shot down 2 enemy aircraft, which you'd expect, so I'm fighting other Independences, so we've got the same fighters. And here I'm a bit indecisive into what to do. Normally I'd turn away from the dive bombers, but I don't really have anywhere to go because the edge of the map's there. So instead I'm turning into them, and then I decide I'm going to slow down and go straight. And then when they get close, which I have now, I go hard to the left and full speed, which will hopefully throw off their aim. But instead I see that they were actually manual aim instead of auto aim, so that wasn't at all relevant. And I lose almost all my health. Having said that though, we've now shot down 8 aircraft and we're still going away. There's number 9. So my indecisiveness and, well, poor decision making in the end there, because that would only ever work against auto-aimed torpedoes, and those were clearly manually aimed, meant that I took a lot of damage early on in this game. But I set my auto waypoints back up, and get my torpedo bombers back up in the air. While I'm ordering these torpedo bombers up, it's actually preventing my fighters from landing. But I'm not expecting any enemy aircraft to attack me right now because I just had a bunch of them fire torpedoes at me. So they should, I should be safe from air attacks for the next little bit at least. But I'm watching this squadron of torpedo bombers here because, well, they're not acting as if they haven't dropped their torpedoes. But, well, they're not doing anything immediately dangerous to me, so I order my torpedo bombers out and try and order them, one squadron to either side of this Kawachi battleship that's slowly advancing in the middle of the map.
Ready for takeoff.
My fighters are back up, so I order them to be kind of near where my bombers are, just in case they get into trouble. I'm just holding down Alt there to see what these enemy ships actually are. It can be hard to identify them from, well, this height. You just saw me there. I've actually ordered my ship onto the enemy's half of the map. That's because we've actually effectively taken that flank, so it's actually the safest place to be right now. I'll be behind my battleships and cruisers, but if I stay up here, the enemy could punch through our lines and get me quite quickly. And, well, the Independence, once it gets going in a straight line, it's got a top speed of about 32 knots, so we'll actually get there pretty quickly. Looks like my torpedo bombers have become into range of that enemy cruiser there.
Group 3, we're under attack.
My number 4 squadron is the closest to the enemy here, so I ordered them to attack independently of number 3.
Taking fire.
Simply because I expect that Kawachi's actually going to be completely focused on its battle with whatever ship it was fighting there. I think it was a cruiser, so it's not going to dodge my torpedoes at all, or at least not effectively. You see my torpedoes are going true, and it looks like the Kawachi's sailing straight. So this should work out pretty well for me. Order my fighters to attack those bombers, and while I'm doing that, I managed to sink that battleship. My first sink of the game and my 6th torpedo hit. So I order my, well, it's now a spare group of torpedo bombers, group number 3, to attack this cruiser. And unfortunately, there's a bunch of enemy fighters coming out behind them.
Taking fire.
So I initially ordered my fighters to go defend it, but I decided they're actually better used chasing down these enemy torpedo bombers, simply because by the time my fighters arrive, my bombers are probably going to be dead anyway. And you see, I've only got 2 of them left, and we're slowly whittling down these enemy torpedo bombers up in the north here. So I'm actually kind of okay with this decision. I do still have another 11 torpedo bombers in reserve, so I can afford to lose 6. Just hope it gets a torpedo off against this cruiser. And it's very close to doing it. But no, it's obviously just not to be. But that's okay. My other torpedo squadron's landing, so they'll both be rearmed pretty quickly and up again for another attack. My fighters are returning to base after shooting down a bunch of enemy torpedo bombers. And now I've decided that, well, after I come around to the enemy side of the map, I'm actually going to move into the cap. And that is basically because our opposite flank, the one that I'm not on, has basically collapsed. The game's actually already descended into a 4-on-4, where both sides have 2 aircraft carriers, but we have 2 battleships, while the enemy team has a cruiser and a destroyer. Which means this could go either way. The one thing we've got going for us is that both of our battleships are actually concentrated, you see right here, so they can support each other. While the enemy's ships, well, we don't know where they are, but chances are they're not together.
Maintaining present course.
I want to get my fighters up to escort these battleships, because I can see there's torpedo bombers moving in. But my fighters are going to be a decent 14, or actually more than that, 20 odd seconds away from being able to launch. So I'm hoping that the torpedo bombers simply won't attack for a little while. But see, it looks like, well, they've spotted me, and it looks like I'm now going to be the target. So I order my fighters to take off as soon as they can and target the bombers, while ordering my AA guns to concentrate on the bombers. I don't want to waste any artillery shells on fighter aircraft in this situation. My fighters are about to launch. Yep, so now it's my job to dodge torpedoes. And this time I turn away from where I expect the torpedoes to come from. You see my fighters and gunners are doing their work already. There's 1 shot down, 2 shot down. 3. 4. There's only 2 bombers left. And there's number 5, only 1 bomber left there. And, well, we shot them all down before they got any torpedoes off. So that was a pretty successful defence. However, while this is happening, my torpedo bombers have actually gone into trouble because the battleship I ordered them to escort, basically, has been sailing towards the enemy. My fighters managed to drive off the enemy fighters, and we've now up to 24 aircraft killed in this game. So I order my fighters to expend their last few shells on enemy torpedo bombers before they can go and reload. Well, I start focusing a bit on what my torpedo bombers are going to be doing in this engagement. Luckily, our battleship managed to dodge those enemy torpedoes, so I don't feel so bad about not escorting them.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Put my autopilot back on, just going straight into the enemy's base now. They know where I am, so there's no point in being subtle. And here I order number 3 to attack, and number 4 to kind of stand by. But, what you can see here, the enemy cruiser's turning away from my number 3 squadron, which means that I decide to attack with number 4, since they are now going to be broadside on, and pull number 3 back in case this attack doesn't work. And I order them to a better position where they will be able to attack before it's too late. And I decide to attack anyway, because I wasn't actually feeling very good about my chances of my squadron here hitting. You see my allies' torpedoes missed.
Approaching target.
There's my squadron 4's torpedoes coming in, and my squadron 3's are coming in from the other side.
Returning to ship. Returning.
And it looks like we're going to get 1 hit here. 1 hit, and that was enough. So that was pretty lucky, because cruisers can dodge artillery torpedoes quite easily if you let them have a chance. Anyway, we are almost into the enemy's cap circle. Well, this battleship that's already in there is under attack by the enemy aircraft, so I want to get my fighters back up to the air as soon as possible to help defend this battleship. Well, actually, at this point, it's probably defend me since it knows where I am. Its fighters, for some reason, are flying directly over me, which, see, I've already killed one of them, and my AA is just ripping it apart. Ripping them apart, I should say. Well, maybe not. Oh, we've got 2 kills, but the other aircraft are surely pretty heavily damaged. But I order my AA guns to concentrate on the enemy's torpedo bombers, as will my fighters in 4 seconds when they take off. Shot down one of them, and I've ordered my carrier to turn into the torpedoes. And I dodged the first wave, and I order my fighters to attack the second squadron, as I do with my anti-aircraft guns, the same as you've seen many times in this video. And, well, I'm just trying to keep my ship pointed directly at them, which makes it easy to dodge. But then I see the way the torpedoes are coming, and I'm hoping to either take it on the bow where it won't do a lot of damage, or weave it, but I decide I'm not going to make it, so I try to turn outside it, which was a mistake. But I get lucky, and I'm left with 1400 hit points. And I order my fighters to just defend me. We've basically almost won by capping. My torpedo bombers are coming to land. But, well, this is effectively game over. The enemy aren't going to be able to attack us in time before we can win this game by capping. Unless that destroyer shows up, but it's been absent for a very long time. And so that is how you do well in the Independence. See here, I got, well, lots of credits and experience as you expect. Shot down 36 enemy aircraft and hit 7 torpedoes hit. Helped capture the enemy base. Sunk 2 enemy ships. Second best in my team in terms of points. And if you actually look there, we've basically almost killed all the enemy aircraft carriers aircraft in this game. The Independence has 37 aircraft. 2 of them have 74. And I believe we've shot down 65 if you add all those kills up. So at the end of the game, the enemy aircraft carriers did not really have a lot of capability to hit back at us. And of course, I'd only lost 15, so I could still hurt them until, well, the game ended, basically. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've had a bit of a look at how to play aircraft carriers in World of Warships. And I'll see you all next time.